Hey guys, Chriso here, and today I'm going to be doing a full tutorial on how to rebase music the way that I do it. Everyone kind of does this a different way. I use FL Studio for most of the rebasing and then Audacity for a little bit of what we have to do. A lot of people use Audacity for all of it. Personally, I think that FL Studio is the easiest and fastest way to do it. You can do this completely legally. You can use the demo version of FL Studio. You do not need the full version. The only issue with using the demo version means that you won't be able to save, which means you need to do the full rebase in one sitting, but since this doesn't take too long, that shouldn't be too hard to do. So the first step to rebasing any song is downloading it off the internet. Now I'm not going to show you how to do this because 9 times out of 10, unless you buy the song, it is illegal to do so, but just make sure you try and get the highest quality version you can find of it. So either download it in FLAC quality, which is .flac file extension. This is completely uncompressed. This is definitely the best format to download music in, but since I just upload mine back to YouTube anyway, I download it in MP3 format with a bitrate of 320 kilobits per second. This is also really high quality. Obviously there's a little bit of compression, but it sounds pretty similar to FLAC for what I can tell. But all I'm trying to say is, yeah, just download your music in the highest quality possible. Alright, now that we've done that, we're going to do the first part of rebasing. So you're going to want to open up Audacity and then drag in your song. So just click it, drag it, and put it into Audacity. Today I'm going to be rebasing Throw It by Criminal Main. I don't actually like the normal speed of the song. I'll play it real quick. So it's a little bit too fast for my liking. I actually want to slow it down because I think it'll just sound better. So I'm going to do Control A on my keyboard and go up to Effect. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to do this. You can just leave your song normal speed if you want. If you just want to keep the same speed for your song, just skip this step. But anyway, I'm going to go down to Change Speed. And usually it'll start on a speed multiplier of 1, which is normal speed. I usually like putting mine back to around 0.85 or 0.8. Sometimes I even go down to 0.75, but usually going down to 0.75 or any lower sounds too slow and the song just starts to sound pretty bad after that. But yeah, so I'm going to try this at 0.85 and see if I'm happy with it. So I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to listen to it again. That is much better. Alright, so now that we've done that, what we can do now is remove the bass from the original song, because the way that rebasing works is by getting your song, doing whatever you want to it, and then removing the original bass notes and then putting it in FL Studio and adding your own bass notes over the top. There are some other ways to do rebasing, but that's the way I do it, and I find that you have the most freedom doing it this way. So basically the way that we're going to remove the bass notes from the original song is using something called a high pass filter. The way that a high pass filter works is by starting to cut off all the frequencies below one that you specify. So if I say I want to make my high pass filter set at 50 Hz, every octave under 50 Hz it's going to decrease the volume by a certain amount of decibels. So I'm going to hit Control A on the keyboard, go up to Effect, and then go down to high pass filter. And as you can see, I've got a frequency right here. For most songs, it will always be okay if you set it in between 85 to 95 Hertz. Usually if you go higher than 95 Hertz, it kind of starts to eat away at like male vocals and some of the lower instruments, and it starts to make the quality of the song sound pretty bad. And sometimes if you set it to 80 Hertz or even 70 Hertz, it won't be enough and there'll still be a little bit of the original bass left in the song. So for this song, I'm just going to leave it as 90 Hertz because that should do. And roll off dB per octave. Make sure that this is set to 48 decibels. So this means that for every octave we go under 90 Hertz, it'll make the frequencies quieter by an additional 48 decibels. So basically what this means is it'll be 0 decibels at 90 Hertz, and then at 45 Hertz, which is half of 90, it's 1 octave down, it'll be negative 48 decibels. So the bass will be basically non-existent after we've applied this. So I'm just going to click OK. This usually takes a little while. Alright, so as you can see, it changed the look of the waveform a lot. The bass is pretty much gone now. If I zoom in, you'll see that the kick bass is still here. So this here, right here is a kick. If I play it, you'll hear it. Usually it is okay to leave kicks in the song, I find. Some people try and remove them, but I think it's easier to just leave them in because usually they're a high enough frequency to not interrupt the bass line we'll be adding, and they sound pretty good when they're left in usually. Although I think this is a little bit of the original bass still here, so I'm going to hit Control A again, go up to Effect, go down to High Pass Filter, and I'm going to hit OK one more time. And what this should do is cancel out the bass even more. After you've applied a high pass filter twice, adding it a third time, fourth time, so on, doesn't really do much at all. Also, you don't need to do this if it removed all the bass on the first time adding it. But this just got quieter, so it should be a little bit better. I'm just going to listen to it real quick and make sure that all of the original bass is now gone. Alright, so this sounds pretty good to me and it looks good as well. All we've got is the kicks left and nothing else really. With some songs, if the original bass notes that the producers put in weren't perfect sine waves, it will be hard to remove the original bass. You can only do what you can do, so what I'm saying here is that if you apply a high pass filter multiple times, there's not really any other easy ways to remove the original bass from a song. I know you can use compressors and that kind of stuff, but I've never really looked into it, and I find that adding high pass filters usually works completely fine. So now that I'm happy with my song, you know, bass is gone, only the kicks are left, I'm going to go up to File, Export. And here's the thing, if you downloaded your song in FLAC format, you might as well keep it in an uncompressed format, so you want to export in WAV format. Since my song was only an MP3 when I downloaded it, there's no point in exporting in a higher format than MP3 if the original song was only MP3. So I'm going to click MP3 for my sake, and I'm just going to export it to my downloads folder. But what I'm going to do is put a HPF in front of it to try and distinguish this between the original file. HPF meaning high pass filter. This is just how I know that this is the version of the song with the bass removed. Make sure your quality when exporting to MP3 is always set to insane 320 kilobits per second, because this is the highest possible quality you can have in the MP3 format. So once this is all good to go, just hit save. Click OK, and it should take just a few seconds to export. Once you have exported the song from Audacity, it's now time to open up FL Studio. So I'm going to do this right now. As I said, you don't need the full version. You can use the demo version for this and it'll be pretty much the exact same, just no saving. Alright, so once FL Studio is open, what you'll want to do is get your song and then just drag it into the timeline like this. So I'm just going to drag and drop it in. And now my song is in here, but what you'll notice is if I turn the metronome on, the song will be all out of time with the project itself. So let's play it. As you can hear, the metronome is not in time with the beat of the song at all. So we're going to fix this right now. What you're going to want to do is click on these two little waves up here right next to the name of the song. So you go right here, click on the waves, and now it'll bring down this big menu, go down to Detect Tempo. And what this is going to allow us to do is match up the tempo of the FL Studio project with the original tempo of the song, meaning that we'll be able to add bass notes really easily without worrying about timing them properly. So for almost all songs, I find that clicking 75 to 150 works really well. Sometimes your song will be faster than 150 beats per minute or slower than 75 beats per minute, but that's pretty rare. So for most songs, 75 to 150 works fine. Just click it, it'll go through and detect it, and it has detected the tempo for my song as 112.2 beats per minute. So would you like to set the project tempo to this value? Yes, we do, because now the song is matched up with the project. So now that we've done that, you're going to want to find the bass drop for your song or wherever you want to start adding bass notes. So I think the bass drop for my song is around here, judging by the waveform. I'm just going to play it and double check. No, it's way back, maybe here. Okay, it is about, it's this kick right here. So what I'm going to do, also if you want to zoom in on the timeline without using this up here, just hold Control on your keyboard and then scroll using your mouse and it'll zoom in. So I'm going to line my playhead up by clicking and dragging it with the bass drop, and what I'm going to do from here is go up to this little tools section right here under where it says pattern 1. I'm going to click the one that looks like a razor blade, What this is used for is cutting audio tracks in half or just wherever you want. So I want to cut the song where the bass drop is, so what I'm going to do is click under where my playhead is and then drag upwards, let go, and it should slice the song just like that. Now the only reason I'm doing this is because I like to try and have my song's bass drop lined up perfectly on one of these black lines, so either like this one, or even better the start of a new bar. That's a good place to have it as well. So I'm going to try and line mine up just here. You also need to zoom in to do this, so make sure you're fully zoomed in, and then you can drag it in perfectly just like that. So now I've got my bass drop lined up with the start of bar 9. So basically what you need to do now is grab the edge of the audio track for your song, so hover over it with your mouse, and then when it turns into the thing with 2 arrows, click drag to the start of the project, and now magically the start of your song should line up perfectly with the start of the project. So let's have a look. And it definitely does. And just to prove that the song is in time with the project, I'm going to go up here to the metronome just to show everyone, turn it on, and you'll hear that the metronome should be in time with the song now. So So the song, all good, definitely in time with the project, and now we can start getting further towards actually rebasing it. So what I'm going to do now is recommend you download this from the description of the video. This is a little bass note. This is the instrument we're going to be using to recreate our own bass line for the song. What this actually is, it's just a sine wave that I generated in Audacity. It's like 65.43 something hertz, but basically it is a perfect musical frequency. So if you use this, your bass notes will be perfectly in tune and like musically correct. If you don't care about them being musically correct, that's fine, and that'll make rebasing a lot easier. But for my songs, I try and have some kind of musical take on it, try and have the notes sound somewhat decent. So what you're going to do with this wave file that I created is click it and drag it into this area of FL Studio. So not onto the timeline, not there, but over here, and then drop it. And go back up here to where it says unsorted, click all, and this should just show all the different instruments and audio tracks that we have in the project. Your instruments will be dark gray, and then the audio track, which is the song that I added before, that is a colored box. So here I've got my bass note. What I'm going to do is click on it, and this will open up like the audio control panel for my bass notes. What I instantly recommend doing is going down to where it says volume, turn volume all the way up by clicking and dragging upwards with your mouse, and go down to where it says crossfade, click, drag the tiniest bit just to make this area down here go red, so just like that, and then let go of your mouse, and that's fine. What this does is makes the bass notes stop playing as soon as they finish appearing on the timeline. So basically, if you don't have crossfade activated, you could put a bass note that only appears for 1 second, but it actually plays the full 10 seconds. So if we click on this now, you can hear it's a perfect sine wave of 65 hertz. So the next thing that you need to do is learn what these things are here. So these little boxes next to the audio tracks and instruments are the mixer channels. A mixer channel is what you set a certain instrument or audio track to, and it'll let you change the volume of that specific track and add effects to it, do all kinds of stuff with it, and basically just kind of add different effects to different parts of the song. So of course, all we have in FL Studio is only 2 different audio things we're working with. We're working with the original song and then our own bass notes. I like to make the original song on channel 1. So I'm going to click in this box, move my mouse up a tiny bit and until it says 1, and then let go. And then for the C5 bass note which I made, I'm going to go down to here, do the same, but I like putting these on channel 2. So now that we've done that, we can actually open up the mixer board. So go up here to the right of pattern 1 and go 4 along to where it looks like mixer levels on a slider right here. Click that, and these are our mixer channels. So basically I've got 1 and 2 here, and then master. That's all we're going to be focusing on for today. So number 1, if I drag the volume on this up and down, it'll change the volume of the original song. for number 2, if I drag the volume for that up and down, it'll change the volume for the bass notes. The way that I go about editing my rebasses, like how I go about making them, is I actually listen to the bass completely clipped and distorted. This is just because I have really bad headphones that cannot play low at all, and I can't really use my subwoofers in the house very easily. The only way I'm able to hear the bass notes is by listening to them distorted. This probably sounds super unprofessional. I don't think many other people would do it this way because they'd have better equipment, but it's just what I do, and I find that it works pretty well. So if you want to rebass like me, click on where it says master, get the slider right here and drag it all the way up. Then come over to insert 1, which is going to be the normal song. Drag that down about the same distance as you dragged the master up. So this should keep the song itself at the same volume, but then go over to insert 2 and drag this all the way up. So now when we actually start rebassing, you'll find that the song is at a normal volume, but the bass notes are completely clipped and distorted, but they're very easy to hear. Obviously, before we finish rebassing the song and before we export it, we're going to change all this back so it sounds good and there's no clipping or anything. Now, the last thing that I should mention is this isn't always a necessary step, but it is pretty important. Go over to where it says master, and right here you'll see Fruity Limiter. Unless you want to have to try and either pirate or pay for expensive plugins with different limiters, I would recommend turning this off. Now, the downside of turning this off means that when you export your rebass, there could potentially be clipping. The limiter kind of acts as like a clipping protection. It stops distortion from happening in your exports. But limiter can also be really bad because sometimes if there's a loud part of the song and then your bass is also happening while that loud part of the song is happening, it'll make your bass quieter and it'll make the volume of the bass and the song both fluctuate very violently. So you'll have this weird effect going on where the rebass just sounds pretty terrible overall. And I actually used to make this mistake with a lot of my old rebasses until rebassing YouTuber XCLSV reached out to me and told me about this. So yeah, I don't actually edit my rebasses with it turned off. I use a different limiter, but I won't be showing that in today's video since it is part of a paid plugin. But this should probably be fine. All we're gonna have to do is turn down the master volume and some of these channels here to make sure it's not clipping before we export it. So yeah, I would recommend us turning this off. You don't have to, but it's probably a good idea. So now that we've finished with the mixer channels, we can close the window by going up here, closing it, and here is where we can actually start adding bass notes. So go up to where it says pattern 1 and then click the plus button here. I'm gonna make a new pattern called bassline and then hit enter. So now that I've got bassline selected, make sure it's selected by the way, just click on it. Come over to where your bass drop is in the song or where you want to start adding bass, and then click in the first little box, like first column of where your bass is going to start. So mine is right here because bar 9 was the bass drop for my song. And as you can see, it has added a new pattern called bassline where I want to start adding bass in the song, which is the bass drop. Now I'm going to talk about something that'll make the rebassing process a lot easier. What you'll notice is in almost all music that's created in today's day and age, the bass line of the original song will last for about 4 bars, sometimes 8 bars, sometimes 2 bars. It's usually something like that, and then it'll repeat itself. So for this song, I'm going to assume that the bass line is going to last for 4 bars, and then it's just going to repeat itself after that for every 4 bars. So if we listen to the bass line, I'll be able to try and remember the pattern in my head and then see if it's the same in the next 4 bars. So my prediction is that there'll be a certain bass line from here to here, and then it'll repeat itself straight after from here to here. So we'll just have a look. And it's going to repeat right here, and I was right. So the bass line is definitely starts here and finishes here, then just repeats itself every 4 bars from here on out. So what we're going to do is get our bass line pattern, go to the right side of it and stretch it all the way out for those 4 bars. And what this will do is just make it really easy to rebass the entire song quickly, because all we're going to have to do is put our own bass notes for this bit of the bass line, and then after that we can just do this. boom, 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 and the bass line we created will repeat itself for the rest of the song. We can edit this if there are like bits in the song without it, but we'll worry about that later. By the way, to remove objects in the FL Studio timeline, make sure that you have the pencil selected up here and then just right click on them. So right click is to remove and left click is to add, like that. Alright, so now that we've added a pattern, make sure it is selected in the timeline itself, and then go up to here where it's like the piano with these little steps. This is your actual note adder. This is where you can make your bass melodies and stuff like that. So click on there, and after you've done that, this new window should come up where there are different notes and everything. What you have to make sure is that go to here and hover over this text. It'll either say C5 bass note or it'll say the name of your song. Click on it and make sure that it says C5 bass note. So click on C5 bass note, and that means that the instrument we're currently using is the bass note. So if I actually place the bass note, you'll be able to hear it. It'll sound really distorted, but that's just how I edit my songs. So yeah, that's how that works pretty much. With the bass note I've created, if you place it at C5 right here, that should be about 65.4 Hertz pretty much. If you place it down at C4, it'll be whatever 65.4 Hertz is divided by 2. So it'll be something like 32.2 Hertz or something like that. The way that frequencies work is that for every octave, the frequency doubles if you're going up. So if I have, let's say this was 60 Hertz here, that would be 30 Hertz there, then 15 Hertz there, and so on. But basically, what I'm going to do to rebase this song is start by placing basic notes, get my note pattern sorted out, and then I'm going to add kicks after and remaster the bass notes a little bit and make them sound good. But at the start they're going to sound really plain and boring, but that's just to make sure that I've got the note pattern sorted. So I'm going to have a listen to this song. What I actually recommend and what I usually do is I'll make a bass line that's the exact same as the one from the original song, and then after I've made it, added kicks and done all that kind of stuff, then I can lower it, like change the pitch and turn it into my own bass line. But for now, I'm going to try and mimic the bass line from the original song. So I'm just going to have a listen to it. So I'm going to start by clicking at the start of C5, which should place a note here. Also, this sounds like the wrong note to me. I think the one in the song is like 2 down from here. That sounds about right. Let's see if it is. And I'm actually an octave too high, so if I come down from here, so listen to this right now, sounds like this. If I bring it down to A sharp 3 instead of A sharp 4, it should match up with the one in the song. So now this is like 30 something Hertz. And it does match up with the one in the song. If I make it a bit longer, you'll be able to hear that better. It's the same pitch, same note, same everything. So what I'm going to try and do is make it so every time a kick is heard in the original song, a bass note is placed, and then that bass note lasts for however long it is until the next kick in the song happens. So it'll be kick, and then my bass note plays, and then another kick, and then another one of my bass notes starts playing. So I think the first kick in the song is obviously at the start of bar 1, so just, you know, the playhead's invisible in here, but click there, drag it to the start, and we should be starting from bar 1, as you can hear. So I'm just going to make this note shorter, but I think the second kick in the song is either here or here. I'll just see. Okay, it's about here. It should be perfectly halfway between this dark line and this dark line here, so okay, it definitely is. So I'm just going to stretch out these bass notes real quick, and if I play it, you can actually kind of hear, as opposed to having one big note that just lasts for that whole time, you can kind of hear where this one stops and that one starts, and that happens on the kick of the song. So this process is pretty simple. All it's doing is adding bass notes that start and then finish on each kick of the song. So I think the next one is like it's definitely there, so add another one there, and now it sounds like this. Oh, we got another kick like really early here. I think it's there. It is. So now if I listen to it, So yeah, I'm going to speed this part of the video up because I think I've explained the process pretty well, but all you're doing is adding bass notes that satisfy you. For me, I just match them up with the kicks of the song, but yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and add all the bass notes until I get to here, because that's the end of the bass line, and then it repeats itself from here onwards. Alright, so now I've finished creating my bass line. It's very, very simple, but if I play it, you'll hear that it matches up perfectly with the original song's one. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is actually add kicks. So the way that I add kicks is probably a little bit different to most people, but I find that it works really well. What you're going to want to do is go 7 notes down from your normal bass line. So that's going to leave 6 empty boxes in between this note and then the one we're going to add. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm going to click here. And now the thing with kicks is that they need to be really short. They can't be too short, but if they're too long, they just sound a little bit weird the way I do it. So I'm gonna make this probably like, I'm gonna say 2 boxes long and see if this kick sounds long enough. That sounds pretty appropriate to me, I think. Actually, I might make it 1.5. Yeah, okay. So what you're gonna wanna do now is double click on the kick, and then it opens up this new menu. All you need to do is press this button here. Now what this does, it's a slope. What is a slope, you may ask? What this does is makes it so this note will start at this pitch, slide down to this pitch by the end of this. So at the start it'll be this note, and then when it gets to here it'll be this note here. So it'll slide down in pitch. If you play it back, you're going to hear that it sounds completely lower than the bass line that we just made. We'll be correcting this as soon as we finish adding kicks. So what you need to do now is add one of these every time a new bass note starts, or where a kick is in the original song. It's the same thing. So for me, the next one is right here, next one is there. Alright, now that I've done that, if we play it back, it'll sound way lower, but it should sound like there are actually kicks in my bass line now. Alright, so you can definitely hear that it starts high, then shoots down to this low note real quick, like the pshh, pshh. That's good, that's what a kick is. So now we're gonna recorrect it back to the original pitch. So go up to this tool right here. It's like the square with the 4 corners. This is your selection tool. Once you've done that, click and drag to select the whole area. Let go of your mouse, and then go back to the pencil, which is where you can move, add, and remove stuff. Click that. Now click on any of the bass notes. So what you need to do is make it so these kicks that we added down here are now in the same spot as what these are now. So my kicks down here, whatever note they are D sharp 3. All these D sharp 3s are going to become A sharp 3. So I'm just going to move it all up, just like this. And now if I play it back, you'll hear that it's the original bass line that we added plus kicks, and it should sound better now. Perfect, so now we've actually got a bass line coming along. You may just want to leave your notes like this and then carry on with the rest of the tutorial, but as you can tell, the notes do not fade out at all. They just, as soon as the note starts, it stays the same volume for the whole time until the next one starts. Some people like this. It's kind of like that really painful like tap out bass, just constant bass line, never gets quiet. But I don't want mine to sound like that. I actually want the notes to start at this volume and then fade out slowly until the next one hits. So the way we're going to go about doing that is by closing this note, adding a window, coming back over to the sound settings for our bass notes right here. Just click that, and what you need to do is play around with the out dial, and all this is, it's a fade out dial. So keep in mind that this bass note that I made is 10 seconds long, like the raw instrument is 10 seconds long. So if I do that, it'll only fade out after being played for a constant 10 seconds. So there's no way the fade out will be heard at all in this, because all of these notes are like under 1 second long. So if I play it, it'll still sound the exact same. So to fix this, you need to make the fade out much stronger. I'm even going to go like this, and I still don't think you'll be able to hear it very much even when it's like that. Alright, I can hear them fading out a tiny bit, but not that much. If doing that still doesn't solve your issue with the bass notes not fading out, go to your length and then start to decrease the length. So I'm going to move mine to about there. All this does will make the fade out more obvious. So I can definitely hear the notes actually starting to fade out after they start playing a little bit more now. So if I just open up my volume mixer, I'll show you. So look at this channel here, the one that's highlighted in green. This is our bass notes. They should start like up here and then fade down slowly. Yeah, you can definitely see, so they start at that red line up there, then go down. But I still want mine to fade out even more than this. So I'm gonna move the length back maybe to about there, and then I'm gonna listen to it. Alright, I'm almost happy with that. I'm just gonna check the levels one more time. Alright, you can definitely see them starting and fading out a lot, but I'm gonna go a little bit more again, just to like there. Alright, I think that's a little bit too much actually, maybe about there. And that is absolutely perfect for me. So yeah, just close that window there, and that's how you make the bass notes fade out, only if you want them to. You don't have to do that at all. For a lot of my songs I don't do that. Just for this one I think it sounds good. So that's our bass line sorted out. That's basically the entire thing. What we need to do now is basically copy and paste this throughout the whole song, and then edit parts of it. Like in parts of the original song where there's no bass, you don't want to be adding your own bass there because it'll sound out of place and it's pretty bad. So for example, like right here,
they can sit on my lap.
There's not really any bass from the original song because, you know, all the hi-hats are gone, all the normal drum line like this, none of that exists in this part.
They can sit on my lap.
So, what we're gonna do to copy and paste the bass line is click it, make sure it's selected, and then just, it's as simple as this. Click there, there, there. That's it really, but as you're doing this, you'll want to listen to the song and just make sure that you're happy with the bass line playing there. If it's in a spot where you think it shouldn't be playing, simply right click to remove it. You can like trim it from the start. You can trim it from the front, or you can also like trim it from the back. It's really up to you. But yeah, so I'm going to speed this part of the video up. I'm just going to go placing my bass lines while listening to the song and making sure it all sounds good. So I'll show the first little bit of what I'm doing. Alright, so I've got my first bit here where there shouldn't be bass. I'm going to wind this all the way back to about where the bass stops, which I think is here. No, it stopped about here. Alright, let's have a listen now.
They can sit on my lap.
Ready?
Now won't you?
Got another bit here where that same thing happens, the bass cuts out. Alright, again, no bass here. Oh, okay, this here is interesting. This is a really unusual kick pattern that doesn't exist for the rest of the song, as you can hear. So I'm actually gonna show you guys how to cover unusual bits like this. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do, it should sound a lot better if you actually change your bass line just for little bits like this. It'll sound a lot more professional. So I'm gonna go up to here and create a new pattern because it's a new spot, and I'm gonna call it special bassline 1. I'm just gonna name it 1 in case there's like any others and I want to call them 2 and 3 and stuff like that. I'm gonna click right here and actually I'm just gonna shorten it to be the right amount of time. Should be like that. Okay, So as you can see, I've now got my special bass line lined up with the special kick pattern in the song. And of course we need to go ahead and add bass notes for these kicks right here. So click on your special bass line pattern, go up to the note adder again. Okay, now I'm just gonna see where the kicks are. Alright, it's literally just. So I'm gonna add my notes now. Again, go up here and make sure that you don't have the song selected. Make sure you have the C5 bass note selected. Alright, so I got the first one placed, and then I think there's two kicks in between here and here. Yeah, there are. So they're gonna place one note there, one there, and then. So now it sounds like. And there's another two in here, so it's gonna be from there to there, and then from there to there. And obviously there's no kicks here, it's just a straight bass line like we originally created in the other pattern. So to add kicks, again, go 7 notes down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna add one there. I'm just gonna make sure it's the same size as the others, which I think was like about that big. Yeah, something like that. So I'm gonna double click, make it into a sliding note like the wave thing. Slide, click accept, and then again I'm gonna add one under where each note starts. So there's one there, I think there, and now it sounds like. And again, it's too low, so go up to your selection tool, select everything, pencil tool, and then make it so the D sharp 3s are now where the A sharp 3s are. So slide it all up just like that, and if we listen to it now, it's perfect, it's completely seamless. So I'm gonna go up to here, close the note adder, and now if I play it from about here, you'll see that it should sound pretty flawless.
Eyes let me know you were free.
Sounding good, so I'm just gonna speed up this next bit of the video again, adding the bass lines, and I'll see you when I'm finished. Alright, so I just finished adding in the entire bass line for the whole song. So as you can tell, it's the one that we made at the start, then repeats itself, drops out a few times, and then there's the special one right here that we had to make, and then it goes back to normal, drops out, and that's it basically. So now we've finished making the bass line. So you can skip this part of the video if you just want to keep your bass line the same as the original songs one, but I'm going to show you how to now downshift it and make it whatever frequency you want. So click on your bass line, make sure it's selected, then go up to the note adder, open it up, zoom out, and get the selection tool. Select all of them, pencil tool, and you can now move your whole bass line up or down, and this will just change the frequency of it. Now in FL Studio there's not any way to check what frequency a specific note is, I don't think, so you'll have to do it by ear. If I'm trying to rebase to a very specific frequency for someone, what I'll usually do is I will get up a frequency player on like the internet. I'll play whatever frequency I need and then try and match up the notes in FL Studio to the frequency that I'm hearing from the web browser. But since I don't really care what frequency this is going to be in this video, I just want to make them lower, I'm going to grab them and move them down to maybe about here. I'll just listen to it. Alright, I think this is pretty close to 20 Hertz right here. I think it's 21 or 22, but it's around that area. So if we listen to it, definitely way lower than the one before. So I'm going to close the note adder now, and because this bass line wasn't our only pattern we made and there was this special one right here, I'm just going to click on this one, open it in the note adder, and I'm going to selection tool, select all of it, and I'm going to drag these down to the same spot as the other one that I just moved down as well. Alright, so now I just close that, and I'm going to have a listen, make sure it all sounds fine. So I'm definitely happy with this. What I'm going to do real quick is save my project. Obviously, if you're using the demo version of FL Studio, you can't, so you have to just do this and hope your computer doesn't crash. Alright, so I just saved it, and now we've literally finished rebasing the song. That's all there is to it. So now I'm gonna undistort it, I'm gonna unclip it, make it sound good, and then we can export it to an MP3 or WAV file. So go to your volume mixer right here, open it up, move the master all the way back down to normal. As you're dragging the volume levels, you'll be able to see up here, it'll say in this little space right here what decibel level it's at. So right now I'm at 5.6 decibels. If I go down to 0 decibels, that's normal usually, then drag the other one up to 0, drag the bass down to 0, and if I have a listen, it should sound completely normal. So obviously in my headphones I can't actually hear any of the bass because it's way too low, but it should be completely fine to export now. The only thing you got to be careful of is clipping. So what I always recommend doing is dragging down the master volume to either -0.5 or maybe even -1, and then I usually like to turn my bass down if necessary. I'll try leaving it at 0 for now and just seeing how it sounds. Alright, this should be completely fine. Usually you can tell if it's clipping if this big bar here is getting up into the red section, and mine is a little bit. If it's getting there a tiny bit, it's not really an issue, but if your bassline is constantly in the red, it's definitely clipping. So I'm going to turn mine down just a little bit to try and get it out of there, and I might turn my master volume down to -1.5. Alright, so we're fine. We're only getting there on the kicks, and we're not getting very high into that area either. The red only shows up when you're above 0 decibels, and being above 0 decibels doesn't always mean clipping. So I think it's good to go. I can't hear any clipping, and if you want to, you can double check that in Audacity after. So I'm going to close this right now. I'm going to go up to File, going to go down to Export. As I said, if you're rebasing a FLAC file, you'll either want to export in FLAC or WAV format because you want to keep that quality. Since I started with an MP3, I'm just going to export in MP3. So I'm going to click it. I actually recorded this video yesterday. I had to re-record it because the recording got messed up. So I'm just going to delete these, to be honest. I don't need them in here. But I'm just going to call it criminal main throw it rebase. I'm going to click save. I'm going to make sure it's full quality. It might start at like 192 or something, but you want to have it at 320 for that perfect quality. Now click start, and it's going to export your song to an MP3 file. And obviously if you want higher versions, you'd go back into the project, you'd click on your baseline, open the note viewer, and you move your baseline up or down just to change the frequency. But I only really need one version, just the one that I made, and I'm happy with it. So that's how you rebase. That's literally it. It's really simple. But before the video is over, I'm going to show you one more thing, which is how to check the frequencies of the song that you just rebased. So how to check what frequencies the ones that you just put in actually are. So go over to Audacity. I'm just going to delete this because I don't need it in here anymore. I'm going to go to the song I just rebased, which is Criminal Main Throw It. It's this one right here. I'm going to click, drag, drop it into Audacity. Control A on the keyboard, effect, bass and treble, and I usually like to make it 13 decibels louder. This will distort it horribly. We're not actually going to save the file like this. This is just to check what the frequencies are. But when the bass is this loud and looks like this, it's easy for Audacity to detect the frequencies more so than any other ones in the song. Now if we listen to it, it is super distorted. We can actually check what the frequencies are. Now what you want to do is go to the selection tool right here and then select one of your bass notes. So That's actually 2. Try and not have any kicks in there just because the kicks are higher and will affect the frequency reading. So I can see a kick here and I can also see a kick right here. I'm going to go in between that. That should be fine. So now that you've selected one of your bass notes, go up to Analyze, Plot Spectrum, and here you have to make sure all your settings look the exact same as mine. So the algorithm must be Spectrum, function must be hammering window, size 8192, and axis log frequency. Now, as you'll see, there's a thing that says cursor and a thing that says peak. Peak is whatever the frequency is of the peak that is nearest to your cursor, and then cursor is the frequency that you're actually looking at currently. So if I go up here, you can see that that little bar that I'm dragging around snaps to this giant peak here, and it says 23 Hertz. So I was about 1 frequency off, so I rebased it at 23 Hertz. So obviously if you weren't happy with this frequency, you'd go back into FL Studio, move all the notes down by 1 spot, and it should be like 22 Hertz. Move them again, you get 21. You know, you get how it works. But yeah, so this is a 23 Hertz rebase. So I'm gonna click close, make a mental note of that, and then do Control Z. And now I have just gotten rid of the extra bass boost I added. So if I zoom in, you can see that the bass does not appear to be clipped. The only time that it hits the top is here on each kick. But as you can see, the frequencies that are hitting the top are not bass frequencies. If the original song has clipping, it is what it is. You can't get rid of it. But yeah, so I'm just gonna have one last listen to this, but I think it's all good. And that is how you rebase music. That's almost all there is to it. There's a few other techniques that I use sometimes, but I don't think they're necessary to show in this video. This is just the basics, how to rebase music. So after you've rebased a few songs, this process will become really simple, and once you know your way around FL Studio, you'll be able to bust out these rebases so quickly. I think it's literally taken me 6 to 7 minutes to do some songs fully, or even less. Like, it's so fast in FL Studio. So yeah, just practice, rebase a lot of songs, and you'll get quick at it, and then it'll be easy to do, and you'll be able to do it in a few minutes for any song you want. So yeah, as I said, that's how you rebase. Thanks for watching the video. If this helps you, be sure to leave a like, because it helps the channel grow and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.